Alright, so I'm going to give you a few examples from the monohybrid practice problems, so in case you missed the lecture or if you were confused, then you can listen to this. So we're going to do problem number 1 together, and you can get this worksheet either in class or you had it and you can look at it in Blackboard if you did not get it in class. So we're going to look at, for problems 1 through 4, use the Punnett squares to help you predict the genotypes, phenotypes, genotypic ratios, phenotypic ratios that result from given crosses. In pea plants, yellow peas are dominant to green peas. Show your knowns, unknowns, Punnett squares, and answers. So, while we're starting this so that you get the hang of it, what we're going to start with is we're going to go ahead and show what our knowns are, meaning what did the problem tell us? What do we give us? What's dominant? What's recessive? So, in problems 1 through 4, yellow peas are dominant to green peas. So I would say capital Y allele is yellow, and then lowercase y allele is green. Okay. For number 1, it says that we're going to cross homozygous yellow peas and green peas. So I'm just going to write that here so that I can show you how this will work. Homozygous yellow is going to cross with green. So whenever this happens, we're saying that our yellow peas, so we need to determine the genotypes of our parents. Every parent is going to have 2 alleles for a certain trait. So we have homozygous, which means 2 of the same alleles, and it shows the yellow phenotype. So we would have capital Y, and then we have green, which is the recessive phenotype, so we know that it has to be homozygous recessive, or little y, little y. Our unknown for especially these problems are going to be the genotypic and phenotypic ratios, so genotype and phenotype ratios. Alright, so we'll do our Punnett square from our cross, and so we have homozygous dominant and homozygous recessive, and we'll fill in our Punnett square. Whenever we do this, we find that our genotypes are going to be 100% capital Y lowercase, or heterozygous, and that our phenotypes, which is what does it look like, the physical traits, are going to be 100% yellow. And I know what you're saying, I didn't write it as a ratio. We can also include it as percentages, so I'm going to show this one as percentages, and then I'll show the next one as a ratio. Monohybrid problems 2, we're going to again include that in this case the yellow peas are dominant to green. So we're going to say that our known, capital Y, is yellow, lowercase y is green. You can include whatever letters you want here as long as you include the same letter and you have a capital and a lowercase. Alright, so for number 2, we're crossing heterozygous yellow, so heterozygous yellow, which is a bit redundant because we know that heterozygous has to be yellow, and then we're crossing another heterozygous yellow. So our genotypes for our parents, because they're heterozygous, they have 1 of each allele, so they have a dominant and a recessive allele, and our unknowns are the ratios, so the genotypes and the phenotypes of the offspring. Alright, so we'll do a Punnett square for this one. And we'd have capital Y lowercase, so heterozygous on the top, heterozygous on the bottom. We'll fill in our Punnett squares. And then we're going to go ahead and give our genotypic ratio. Whenever we report these ratios, we're going to say homozygous dominant first. So I have 1 homozygous dominant, or 1 YY. I have 2 Ys, heterozygous, and then I have 1 lowercase y, lowercase y. Okay, so I'm counting up my offspring, which are here. So these are all of the potential offspring. And so I'm just counting up how many there are. I could also say that I have 25% of the homozygous dominant, 50% of the heterozygous, and 25% of the homozygous recessive. For the phenotypic ratio, we're going to report dominant and then recessive. So in this case, we're going to have 3 that are dominant, so all 3 of these, I wanted the highlighter, 3 of these are going to be dominant. Okay, so whenever I write this, I would say that I have 3 yellow. So 3 yellow. There we go. So we have 3 yellow, or dominant, to 1 green, which would be the recessive trait. Again, you can put this in your box, or you can put this on an extra piece of paper or on the page across from the boxes. All right, we'll do one more example together. We're going to go ahead and do number 10, and just set that up so that it will help you do 11 and 12. So number 10 is looking at a rare human blood disorder that's caused by a recessive allele that makes people appear blue. So what I know here is that we have a dominant allele and a recessive allele. So I have A is dominant, and then I'll say little a is recessive, and I'm going to say that the little a is blue because it makes people appear blue if they have 2 of them, and then big A would be normal. So it says a blue person is going to marry a normal person who carries the trait, or who carries the recessive gene. So whenever we're looking at this, we'll assign the genotypes of the parents, and we would have our blue, which would be homozygous recessive, and then we have the normal because they have the dominant, but they also carry the recessive trait, so it would be a little a. The question, or the unknown, is what's the probability of a blue child? So this is the question that they're asking. Our Punnett square, then, we would do our homozygous recessive, heterozygous, fill in our Punnett square, and what we should find is when we look at this, we have our little a's down here, and so our answer to the question would be that 50%, there is a 50% probability of having a blue child. If you have any questions as you're going through these, please don't hesitate to ask. I think that this should help you along the way, but please ask if you have questions.